we had a great set of policies. Frankly, the last 3 years has been disastrous for so many Australians. And we are now, under Labor's policies, we are now facing a growing energy crisis. We cannot keep going the way we are going.
But Sarah,
they didn't buy your solution,
the problem is
did
that
they?
people don't agree. So no matter whether or not you think they're bad policies or you've got better policies, people don't agree. And please, I want to make this absolutely clear. I really like Peter Dutton. I do think that he's been an ornament in Australia. That's not what we're talking about, or any of us are talking about. We're talking about what happens to your party and the position your party now finds itself in, which I would say is an existential crisis. And I just want to also to give a shout out to Peter Khalil, because I don't barrack for political parties, but for really good parliamentarians.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I barrack for them. And Peter Khalil, if he goes down, has gone down because he has stood up to anti-Semites.
Yeah.
You know, so he has shown courage, and if he's punished for his courage, then I hope that, you know, that the rest of the nation at least knows that there was a very good man there who made a fight. He might have lost the fight, but he didn't lose the war.
No, he's
and he
fantastic.
was very sensible on national security issues to negotiate with him and deal with him.
I want to bring in Andrew Bolt. Andrew, I want to ask you this question as we look at this number tonight. How do you go with a political party that had such an emphatic win in its position and its opposition to The Voice to a rout of the sort we're seeing tonight?
It's astonishing when you think that, in 4 months it managed to go from what was the primary vote, about 38%, some say even higher at one stage, to what is it now, 30%? I mean, that's disastrous. And I suspect that a lot of that, it just finally collapsed the last 2 weeks, I think probably went really badly very fast. We're talking a lot about Peter Dutton, and personally I like Peter Dutton, don't know him that well, I've only met him a few times, but you know, nice guy, all that. But it's not who you are face to face, it's what you present. And people thought he was scary. I think Tanya Plibersek probably did it deliberately, likening him to Voldemort. His looks were unfortunate. That stuck. People, scary guy. And when he then tried, it's a bit like Bill Shorten trying to be I'm not the union tough guy, I'm going to talk really nicely and kindly and sweetly. People didn't buy it. It wasn't really him. Made worse by the fact that he couldn't talk about defence for weeks, which would have been a natural fit. But we're talking all about the failures of the Liberals. We've got to look on the other hand. You had Anthony Albanese. Sure, he lied his way to a win. I got that. You know, his policies will be rubbish. I think the Liberal Party will have, the Labor Party is going to have a real big challenge in front of it, restoring the economy to some health, all that. But in these troubled times, Anthony Albanese had what Peter Dutton did not, and that is an ease with people. You saw it on the election campaign, all through it. He wasn't fazed, he's good for a laugh, good for a beer. You know, he's even contacted me, would you believe? I'm one of his hardest critics. I would get texts and calls from him. I mean, seriously. This is a nice guy to many people. And in these times, that's what they wanted, as opposed to a scary guy. I know that's a superficial reading, but I tell you what, it counts for a lot. You've got to have a guy or a woman that looks like a leader and that is reassuring in these times. And I have no idea who the Liberals will turn to for that.
Yeah, Andrew, it's interesting you make that point, because there is a comparison to make here, and just as you give us your final thoughts on what you can reflect on this if you like, or make some other thoughts in relation to this result. But when you said that, it reminds me of John Howard, where he would engage with everyone, critics, those that loved him, loathed him. He would engage with everyone in the media. I think you can say a similar thing about this Prime Minister, Andrew.
Well, I think you can. I mean, I don't know what it's like in private, but again, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. I mean, I met him a number of times. Obviously, he came on my show years back when he was happy to show that Bill Shorten couldn't tell him what to do and what programs he went on. So he was always like that. But he presents as a nice, easygoing guy. And in a way, you know, it's weird. You think, how could it possibly be that a government that left Australians poorer, more divided, more uncertain, weaker militarily, promising a decade of deficits to come, how could that possibly have been re-elected? And not only was re-elected, with a swing towards it. I mean, it's astonishing. Well, it did it because Anthony Albanese didn't look threatening, and for all the damage he did, he said, it's not my fault, and I've got a Band-Aid for it. A handout here, a handout there, another handout there, even a handout to some of the most privileged people in our society. Students, 20% off your debt. That was a big one at the end. 20% off your student debt. These are privileged people. And I think that's helped him enormously. But like I said, it will leave the Labor Party without a plan to restore the economy that is needed to actually pay for all this. And that is going to be massive. Will Labor, in fact, have to deliver the cuts to the public service that it excoriated when the Liberals proposed them?
Andrew Bolt, thank you for your contributions. Thanks for being a part of our big night on covering election 2025. Appreciate your thoughts, and Tom Connell with some fresh thoughts. Tom, you've got another big call to make. Well, not a big one, I think an expected one.
An expected one. I've sort of hinted at it. Maybe I got splinters, I don't know. Let's look at Brisbane first of all. We're going to see 2 more gains for Labor. This is the crucial element. It's become the story of the night as well. The crucial element here is it's Labor versus the Greens. This, of course, last time was actually Labor versus the LNP. So on that primary, what's going to happen here is it doesn't matter Max Chandler's ahead of Labor. They will get the Liberal preferences and they'll finish above the Liberal Party. Once they do that, they win the seat. So even though the margin looks a bit smaller than some of the other ones, we're going to see the Labor Party win this seat on those numbers. There's no way that Max Chandler-Mather can overturn that. So big profile MP from the first term, he falls as well. Also looking down in Tasmania. So we hinted at the start of the night, this could be a happy hunting ground for Labor. We called Bass already. They're going to hold lines. Well, they're going to win Braddon as well. We've got enough of the vote in now. If we can see this 48% in, huge swing against Mel Hingston. And when we look at two-party preferred there, you're just not going to turn that back. Again, these are figures that will come back through the night, but not enough to save Mel Hingston. And Anne Urquhart will go from previously in the Senate now to the House. So where does this leave us? If we look at the remaining seats, well, the first issue for the LNP, if we think about whether or not, or the coalition, they can withstand a majority, these are the closest seats right now. Look on this side. This is who holds them. Climate 200, LNP Liberal, no Labor seats in these columns, which might flip later on. Again, these are all Liberal seats as well. And in fact, Labor will win Bonner. I haven't called that yet on this board, but they'll win Bonner. So there aren't close seats for the coalition to win. There is still a chance Labor loses, perhaps worst case scenario, 5 seats. But look, so far, at the gains they've made, 6 at least. Another couple we've got to put on the board, including Bonner, so call that 7. And that means the gains they make, even in a worst-case scenario from here, the gains they're going to make are going to, in fact, be more than any seats. They're going to offset the losses. This was always their plan. It seemed ambitious. The pendulum, the story it tells as well. When we look at that, at the start of the night, we thought, will it swing towards the coalition? Will they be a chance? Well, look at that. They've literally gone off the scale right now. So it might come back down, but right now, Labor's in that position. So as we now can say, we called it earlier on, Labor were going to form government. They are going to once again be returned with a majority government after we get the final results later on, but they are clearly going to win at least 76 seats, Kieran.
Yes, indeed. Off the charts. That's called off the charts, that victory. Unbelievable. The pendulum has broken. Tom, thank you. Let's go to Chris Kenny at the Labor headquarters. Chris, is it, how would you describe the scene there now? It must be unbelievable.
Kieran, it's broken into party time here already, of course. I think the results are better than their wildest expectations. A majority government cheering as they find out about what's happening in Dixon in Peter Dutton's seat, cheering as the election is called by Tom Connell and others around the country. Let's just talk to a few of the people here. Tell us, do you want to share your feelings about the results today?
I'm all good, thank you.
You guys been out campaigning today? Tell us what you think about it all.
No, sorry.
Well, I've got all the staffers. I think I'm bumping into all the Labor staffers. Come on. So, can you tell us how you feel about the election result?
Oh, thrilled to bits.
You've been out there working hard today on the booths?
I got up at 5 a.m.
Is this better than you even expected?
Yes.
Are you hoping to see Albanese Prime Minister here very soon?
Yes.
You've been out campaigning today, mate?
Yes, we've been on the booth, phone banking for the last 3 months for Fiona Phillips.
Right.
Was expecting a bit later, but really proud of Albo and his team tonight.
Yeah, there's a lot of happiness to hear. Here's Tony Burke. Let's see if we can grab Tony. Tony, could you just, how you going? Do you want to just share your thoughts live to air? This must be a much better result than you dared to hope for.
Yeah, look, we're still waiting for things to come in.
Sure.
But obviously, you can't do everything you want for the country in 3 years. And so the opportunity that looks like it'll be there to be able to continue that work is something we're really passionate about.
Have a swing to you, majority government, probably Peter Dutton losing his own seat. You couldn't have expected this.
Look, I will say, when we tell people that Anthony Albanese has been underestimated his whole career, it's true. It's true. And it's happened again tonight.
Now, he'll be in a position to claim victory tonight soon.
Oh, it's for him to make that speech, but every Labor supporter around the country is, waiting for that moment.
The party has begun. Thanks for stopping with us.
Thank you.
Tony Burke there. Labor Party Minister, Senior Minister, it is descending into celebrations here, Kieran. It's going to get a lot more hectic. We believe Anthony Albanese is arriving at this location soon and he'll take the stage sometime in the next half hour or so. Back to you guys.
Well done, Chris. Very nimble work and got to Cabinet Minister in the process. Thank you. Let's go to Paul and Shari at the Liberal event. I think it is. Yeah, it is a bit quieter, a lot quieter there, Paul. Shari?
Yes, I think it is referred to absolutely as an event because there is a lot of cope that is taking place in the room for the most obvious of reasons. Look, this is a difficult night. This is a difficult night for millions of people who wanted Peter Dutton to become the Prime Minister, only to see not that happen, but obviously now him losing his seat as well. Again, I don't think as a man, as a national figure, that he deserves that moment in history. He's done great things for the country, but we also have to be incredibly realistic. Part of the bad campaign includes the fact that we've got the Prime Minister about to jump into the car and go to his party, and there's no concession. There's no suggestion of one in the next couple of minutes. The reality is that should have happened by now. It is clear that they have lost the election, and also, yes, there's the question about his seat. And look, I'll obviously save deeper thought and conversation about the future of things for, say, tomorrow night, and Shari again on your program on Monday night. But Dixon was a really interesting story when, again, you just have a look at the electoral roll. There was a 9,000 vote difference between people who are under the age of 50 and those that are over the age of 50. I want people to understand, and I love John Winston Howard, okay? I love what he did for the country, but I want you to also think about this. A person who was 1 day short of being able to vote in the 2007 election is now 38. We have fault lines that are deep on age, they are deep on communication, they are deep on priorities, and while I know this will set a cat amongst the pigeons, an early thought has to be, does the centre-right of Australian politics have to confront issues in the way that Labor did when it came to things like boat turnback and border protection? Are we at that? Is that the price of entry? And also, one last thing here, Shari, is we're now 2 for 2 of people who, at the start of the year, every indication was that they were in a competitive race, if not leading a race, and they didn't just lose, they lost their seat. It's happened to Peter Dutton and the Liberal Party here. It's happened to the Conservatives and their leader in Canada.
So it's obviously not a happy room here tonight, but it's not as devastating as you might think. I think the Liberal Party knew they weren't going to win. They knew they weren't picking up 21 seats tonight, as I said earlier in the coverage this evening. But they aren't conceding some of the seat calls that have been made on all the television networks. And the reason is this. The pre-poll votes are only just about to start being counted within minutes. So if you at home voted pre-poll, which is about half the population or close to it, your vote hasn't been counted yet. So the size of some of these swings are expected to narrow. Whether that translates into any Liberal seat wins is another Liberal seat wins is another story. The Liberals are feeling cautiously optimistic in 3 seats, in Solomon, Bendigo and Goldstein. Of course, that would be a Tim Wilson win from Monique Ryan. That is cautiously optimistic. They're not saying their wins at this point. And Kieran, just in terms of the leadership, you know, these conversations were actually happening before election night, and I can tell you that the 2 lead contenders for the Liberal leadership, in the case of a bad Dutton loss, they weren't expecting him to lose his seat, but in the case of a bad Dutton loss, the conversations were already happening, and the 2 lead contenders will be Angus Taylor and Andrew Hastie. The criticism of Angus Taylor will be that he didn't manage to sell the argument on cost of living. This was meant to be the cost of living election. He was the shadow treasurer, so that will be held against him. And as you know, Andrew Hastie was virtually invisible at this campaign. One of the reasons perhaps was that he knew he might have a tilt at the Liberal leadership.
Sherry and Paul, thank you. We've just been advised that Peter Dutton will be speaking shortly at that event. So we will go back live to Peter Dutton when he speaks. I would guess that he's on the phone now, possibly to the Prime Minister, and this is a convoy of Anthony Albanese as he drives from Kirribilli to his event in the inner west, in his seat of Grainler. We know he lives in Marrickville, or that's where his home was before he moved into the prime ministerial residences. They're heading back to the inner west now, Kirribilli to Marrickville for this event. You can see the bustling in the corner there. That's the Labor Party celebration event. That's where he's headed. I would guess right now Peter Dutton is on the phone to Anthony Albanese conceding, and we'll confirm that shortly. But given Mr Dutton's going to speak in the next little while, he knows what the protocol is. You can say a lot of things about Peter Dutton, but he knows what the protocol is. He's not someone who won't show up. He will show up, he'll make the call, and he'll be, he and Albanese have each other's phones. They talk quite a bit, and I would imagine they're doing that right now.
Perhaps. I mean, just because we haven't heard of a concession doesn't mean it hasn't happened. You'd think it must have happened, but even though Sherry's talking about people talking about the vote coming back, it can't come back nearly enough, and the perception by us is it can't even come back in Dixon. So, look, I just want to alert everyone at the time, if they're not looking, it is extraordinary that we're at this situation. I don't think any of us would have picked this tonight, 9:16 in the evening, and the Prime Minister's already driving to claim victory, and Tom Connell called the election at 8:19. I mean, this is what you expect after sort of 3 terms of a government when they're getting routed. It's not the sort of timeframes you expect for a result to be known for this kind of election, which was imagined to be tight.
Well, Andrew, just to pick up on that, and I want to bring in Murray Watt, because as Andrew makes that point, he's 100% right. The Rudd slide was 83 seats. Are you going to get to the Rudd slide number 83 tonight?
It's looking that way.
I mean, they're bigger than the Rudd slide?
Potentially. It's looking that way. I mean, the only thing I'd say is that there are some Labor-held seats that we don't think we're over the line yet, like Bean, like Corwell, Melbourne, Wills. So it is still possible that we drop some seats.
Solomon or not?
Solomon's close. I think it's still looking okay, is my understanding.
I've been talking to Luke Gosling. He seems very confident.
Okay. Yeah. So we may still, drop a couple, but it's an incredible result.
Bendigo?
Bendigo, I think, still close. Okay. I wouldn't be giving up on it. But, even the most optimistic people thought that a narrow majority was possible, and I was probably in that camp. But a healthy majority was beyond our wildest dreams.
Well, let's go to a nightmare for this next person. He's the Liberal frontbencher from Victoria, the seat of Wannon, Dan Tehan, that we went their wildest dreams for Labor. This is the worst of possible scenarios that you could have imagined as the Prime Minister now drives across the Harbour Bridge to his celebration party, Dan Tehan.
It is, Kieran, and my heart goes out to everyone in the Parliament who has lost their seats tonight, but mostly in particular to my colleagues. They've worked incredibly hard. We've worked incredibly hard in opposition over the last 3 years. We've stayed united. We've really tried to present an alternative case to the Australian people and to all of them, and in particular our leader, Peter Dutton, who led from the front and really brought us together after 9 years in government in what is the hardest period, that first term into opposition. We all stayed unified, and to him I say thank you for what he did and the leadership he showed in uniting us all. Excuse me.
Dan Tehan, have you yourself got ambitions for a leadership position?
Andrew, I've been on the road all day. I started off at 5 a.m. this morning. I've been driving around my electorate. I've just spent the last hour driving from Warrnambool back to Hamilton, thanking all the wonderful volunteers and supporters. I didn't know I'd retained my seat till I arrived back about half an hour ago, and my daughter, who's studying overseas at the moment, rang me to tell me that it was showing a Lib retain against Wannon. And I only, when I got into the office here, found
Is that a
out,
maybe?
The very, very sad news about Peter Dutton. So, look, Andrew, what I'm saying is on election nights, what you need to do is obviously thank all those wonderful supporters, and we've had 1,700 here in Wannon in one form or another who have helped me.
I understand that, Dan Tehan, but I'm really sort of after a straight answer, if you don't mind. Are you interested in serving as deputy leader or leader yourself at this point?
I'm giving you a straight answer, Andrew. I haven't thought about it because, seriously, I've had half an hour to get back here, understand what's happened with my own seat and try and get a sense of the picture of what's happening around this nation. And I have not thought about it, and that is the straight answer.
Why do you think you got flogged in this election?
Well, what we need to do is not do an analysis on election night. What you need to do is you need to make sure that you do your analysis in a very considered and methodical way. You've got to speak to the experts and you've got to make sure that you take your time to get it right. A review now at, 9:30 on election night is not going to do anyone any good. You've got to make sure that what you do is considered, methodical. We've got to work out who's left in the team, bring all the skills that we've got. There'll be and bring everyone together, get the experts in, make sure we understand, OK, what worked, what didn't with the policy offering, what worked and what didn't with the campaign, and make sure that we do all that in a very considered way. That is absolutely vital, given a night like tonight.
Yes, I can understand that, Dan Tehan. And one of the things, the first thing you've got to do is front up, which you've done, and some of your senior counterparts have not done, in fact, not doing any media, but you have, and we thank you for it. Dan Tehan, we will talk to you soon. Sarah Henderson is with us. Sarah, this is, as we look at these pictures of the Prime Minister, he's got crossed the Harbour Bridge now, on his way. I think that's now the Anzac Bridge that he's on. Yep. And now, so the Inner West, he'll be there in a matter of minutes. And we're going to hear from Peter Dutton just now as well, as you mentioned to me off air. And I would imagine that in this drive, if the concession hasn't happened, it would be happening as we speak. That Peter Dutton will be doing that. But this is a massive rebuild that you face. It's a huge consideration. I think Dan Tehan's right to say it's not something you can do in one evening.
That's exactly right, Kieran. This is obviously a very, very strong result for Labor, so I want to congratulate the Prime Minister and the Labor Party for a stronger victory, much stronger than we ever anticipated. We knew we had a massive mountain to climb, but some of these losses are, frankly, a big shock. It's devastating to lose great men and women from our parliamentary party, particularly our leader, Peter Dutton, if things shape up the way that they are looking. But as Dan has said, we won't be analysing our loss tonight. We will be taking the time to consider exactly what happened. We will rebuild. We have millions of people who voted for the coalition today and over the last couple of weeks. We will not let them down in terms of the work that we will do to work out what went wrong and how we can rebuild going forward.
How do you go, Chris Uhlmann, from such a... How does a political movement and the coalition go from such an emphatic win with the Voice referendum to where they are tonight, Chris?
I think there's been signs of the coalition dying for some time now. Like Western Australia, remember what happened there? That was an extinction-level event. Then we saw another election when they barely did any better. In South Australia, they're not competitive anymore. Clearly, they're not competitive in Victoria. I think that the fear for Australia is that we end up with a circumstance where the centre-right of politics actually can't form a government. Now, as I look across to the race to 76, Labor's just clicked over to 73, the Liberal National Party is sitting on 28 seats. What matters now is how high up the poll they can climb and whether or not they're going to fall below 50 seats, which puts them in an almost impossible position to take government next time around.
Can I just add, I think one of the problems the Liberal Party has, its structure is a federalist structure. So the states hold the whip hand in managing the party. Look at the parlous state of the Liberal Party in WA. Look at the parlous state of the Liberal Party in South Australia and the leadership changes there at a state level. Labor holds government there for 17 years. We win it for one term, we're punted out. Ditto in Victoria. It's been 3 decades, almost 27 years or something. We've held government for one term only, and in comes Labor. Look at New South Wales. The party's in administration, basically. Factionalism has ripped through the Liberal Party. I mean, yes, in part it's about values and what you're offering and policy, but it's also having the fundamental structure at a state level. Labor's got Malinowskis and Cook, forget Victoria, but Minns. It's governing from the centre-right. And when you govern from the centre-right, Labor at a state level is virtually unbeatable. And our guys just are not putting down the branch infrastructure and all the party machinery. You guys know, you've run campaigns, that you need to be competitive in these seats.
This is devastating, but these things tend to happen in cycles, don't they? I mean, the coalition were in for 9 years. The Hawke-Keating government was 13 years.
Yeah,
no, this is the point Barnaby made before. You do come back.
They are cyclical,
This is a
Andrew,
devastating
but
night
look
for
at
the
our
Liberal
state.
Party.
I just went through the litany of problems we have structurally at a state level. And if you do not have the underpinning at a state level to buttress you federally, you don't have the resourcing to fall back on. You don't have the fundraising machine. I mean, we are down to small business and high target, low value fundraising. It's really hard for the Liberal Party.
Andrew, and I just say too,
we don't have the unions.
When they lost government in 2007, they lost it on 42% of the primary vote. Now they're on 30% of the primary vote. I just think that we're talking about a structural shift in the way that Australia votes. Because what we're also, this is the thing, the Labor Party shouldn't get too ahead of itself because it's on 33% of the primary vote. So it's doing very well through. So I think also the Labor Party needs to look at, it's improved its position now, but it needs to do better than that and not get ahead of itself and think that the entire Australian population has just given an endorsement. What it's said is we don't want that guy.
Yeah, that's it. You've got to avoid the hubris.
To do better. What I'm saying is we need our state divisions. Our state divisions are not doing enough.
There's one other thing I want to ask Sarah Henderson about briefly, and that's, Sarah, the work from home policy. Jane Hume, Peter Dutton, whoever came up with this. When I was out door knocking with candidates, everyone was home because it was a Monday or whatever. It's like, to say it for the public service, it seems to me a lot of Australians would have just rejected that. I heard you went behind in Eden Monero and Robertson immediately after that. How much of a factor do you think that was?
Look, I was actually with Lucy Wicks at the time we made that change, and she said it was really damaging in those communities which really do rely on work from home and the commuter-type suburbs and regional towns and centres. Look, it did do some damage. There's no doubt about it. But the one thing that Peter did do, he actually admitted that he had made a mistake and that we had made a mistake.
But it's a bit of an unforgivable... When you announce a policy like that, you've either got to put it out several months, many months before, at least focus group it, test it. That was just the most random thing to happen weeks before an election. Almost, it basically nullifies all the other measures like the fuel excise reduction and so on, because if people are thinking they're going back to work two extra days and you live in Penrith and you drive into Sydney or you live on the Central Coast, the $14 you save on a tank gets eaten up very quickly.
Well, of course, Labor completely mischaracterised what our policy was all about.
You can't keep blaming Labor for your loss. You can't keep...
Murray, could you just
take some responsibility.
Yeah, Murray, I am taking responsibility. But what I am saying very clearly is that it was a mistake, and Peter admitted that mistake. But it did do some damage. It really did put a big drag on our vote. And, you know, we've got a lot of soul-searching to do. I've been very clear in making... You know, there's no debate on what a strong win this has been for Labor. and also there is no debate that we have a lot of hard work to do.
Do you think nuclear will be dumped out of this? Like, can you keep going with nuclear after this?
Andrew, to be really frank, I'm not going to be speculating on what we might do going forward.
Sure,
But I actually do believe that we had the right mix of energy policies because we have a growing energy crisis in this country. And one of the things that I'm concerned about and thinking through is that, you know, we obviously needed to do better in terms of how we communicated the growing crisis in our country, which is really impacting on the entire economy.
Well, let's hear now from Murray. I think your response to a bit of that.
I mean, those in the Liberal Party would obviously understand this better than me, but I from what I know, what Peter's said is right about the structural issues that the Liberal Party faces. But to pick up on Chris's earlier point, I do think there's something deeper going on here, and there is an identity crisis ahead for the Liberal Party about who they are and what they stand for. They've clearly walked away from teal seats, clearly not wanting to engage in issues that matter in those seats, like climate change. The last campaign review into the Liberal Party identified a problem for the party with women voters and younger voters that hasn't been addressed. In fact, women voters were further alienated through the work from home policy. And I do think that the Liberal Party, you know, it hasn't seemed to have worked to go after the outer suburbs, and that's partly because of the preoccupation with culture war issues. That's not what people were concerned about. They were concerned
let's have a listen. Sorry, Murray. Let's have a listen to Peter Dutton.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, tonight's not the night that we wanted for the Liberal Party or for our coalition or indeed for our country. But we've worked hard every day over the course of the last 3 years to do our best for our amazing country. One of the great honours of being the leader of this party is that we have met people from every side, every corner, the length and breadth of this country. And there are many amazing stories. People who have sacrificed, people who are doing it hard at the moment. And I've always wanted in public life for the best for our country and the best for every Australian. The highlight of my career has been as the Defence Minister, and over the course of this campaign, on Anzac Day, we caught up with young veterans in Townsville at the RSL, and it reminded me of how lucky we are as a country. And I want to acknowledge all of those men and women in uniform who keep us safe as a country. Now, we didn't do well enough during this campaign. That much is obvious tonight, and I accept full responsibility for that. Earlier on, I called the Prime Minister to congratulate him on his success tonight. It's an historic occasion for the Labor Party, and we recognise that. I congratulated the Prime Minister and wished he and Jody and Nathan all the very best. And I said to the Prime Minister that his mum would be incredibly proud of his achievement tonight, and he should be very proud of what he's achieved. Thank you. I also had the pleasure of speaking with Ali France, and Ali and I have been combatants for a number of elections now, but she was successful in Dickson tonight, and she will do a good job as a local member. She lost her son Henry, which is a tragic circumstance that no parent should ever go through. And equally, I said to Ali that her son Henry would be incredibly proud of her tonight, and she'll do a good job as a local member for Dickson, and I wish her all the very best, please. Now, it's been a great honour to be leader of this amazing party for the last 3 years. And I want to firstly acknowledge David Littleproud, who has been a great partner in crime. He's led the National Party with great distinction. He's had the strength of character to stand up on issues which are important to us, and we've worked incredibly well together. He's done a great job, and he will do into the future. I want to say thank you very much to Susan Lee as my Deputy, and also Angus Taylor as a Shadow Treasurer, and other senior members who have contributed to the success of the last couple of years.
I also want to say a very, very big thank you tonight, most importantly, to the millions of Australians who have supported the Liberal Party, the Coalition. It's not our night, as I point out, and there are good members, good candidates who have lost their seats or their ambition, and I'm sorry for that. We have an amazing party and we'll rebuild. Can I say thank you very much to John Olsen as the president of the party. He's done a fantastic job. To Andrew Hurst and all of the Secretariat for the work that they've done. I want to say thank you to my staff who are just amazing, led by Alex Dalgleish, Jody, Martine, Jackie, Selma, all of the EO staff, my advanced team, the AFP who have done an amazing job for our family. And I want to say thank you very much. Thank you. I have the best media team in the country, led by Nicole Chant and Adrian Barrett and their team. They've done an amazing job and I'm so grateful to them and to all of our loyal staff. Thank you very much. That leaves me, of course, with the hardest part, that is my amazing family. Australians have seen... Please, yeah. Thank you. I'm blessed to have an amazing family in Kirralie, in Beck and Harry and Tom, and they... Please, yeah. Thank you. They've stood by me through thick and thin, and I'm so grateful for their support and their love. Can I say thank you to the people of Dickson and to our amazing supporters in Dickson. Dickson had a one-term curse. It was only ever held for one term at a time, and we've held it for 24 years, which is an amazing achievement. "24 years is a long time to be in public life, and it has been an amazing honour. But I do want to say thank you to the people of Dickson who have placed faith in me over a long period of time, and we've had lots of battles and lots of campaigns. Ultimately, we've been able to deliver an amazing outcome for our local community. To residents and to people that we've been able to help, people who were with loved ones who were sick and stranded, infrastructure projects. There are many ways in which we've been able to provide amazing support, and I want to say thank you very much to them. Our Liberal family is hurting across the country tonight, but including in my electorate of Dickson, and I want to say thank you very much to all of them. They are amazing people dedicated to their country. Ultimately, we live in the best country in the world, and I've always believed that. I always will. I love this country and I've fought hard for it. We've been defined by our opponents in this election, which is not the true story of who we are. But we'll rebuild from here. We'll do that because we know our values, we know our beliefs, and we'll always stick to them. I want to say thank you to the Australian people for the faith they've placed in me, and thank them for the great honour of having been the member for Dickson and the leader of the opposition. Thank you very much. Thank you.
That is one of the most dignified and the classiest speeches you'll see from a defeated leader, a leader of a party that's had a complete... Well, it's been a bloodbath in many respects tonight, but it's a great democracy that we have where the opposition leader will get up, concede, he's made a phone call. But I've got to say, Barnaby Joyce, that was a classy speech from someone who you know and I know is a good human. He's been flogged tonight and he got up, he thanked everyone, and the dignified and gracious way that he spoke about the Prime Minister and his son and his late mother and Ailey France and her late son. That is a quality human right there.
It absolutely is, and it shows the maturity of a politician that they know when they're on the football paddock, they're playing to win. But once they're off the paddock, he's off the paddock tonight, don't play footy in the change room. And when you're off the paddock, you act like a decent, responsible person and don't sully and disgrace the statesperson you were, the statesman he is. In a funny way, to be honest, a bit of a reprieve. It's a bit like Howard. When Howard lost, he sort of thought, there's probably a bit of a silver lining in that because you can make a graceful exit without and do it on your, do it like that rather than through the sort of the Machiavellian things that happen and necessarily happen and always do happen in party rooms. But Peter should go out knowing that he has served his nation well in the most proper and fulsome sense. The nation is a better place for his service to our nation in Canberra. And I think we all, as I said at the start, through the middle, all the way through this tonight, I never expected to win. And I said that quite openly to you. It was a case of, what would happen. And I must admit, congratulations to the Labor Party. Absolutely. You played a very shrewd game of football, and you've come up trumps.
Sarah, that was a quality speech, wasn't it? Sometimes the farewell is the best speech. I remember Simon Crean, the speech he gave when he was toppled, the late Simon Crean. That speech today, I thought, was a quality, dignified address.
It was very dignified, and it just goes to show what a magnificent man he is. He's a great loss to our party. He has served our nation like few others have, and I think he's been magnificent as a leader. He brought us together after a pretty gruelling loss in 2022. I've been, in the parliament since 2013, and in terms of the unity that he built, I don't think we haven't had a more unified party than the last couple of years. That is all Peter's hard work. So this is a great shock to have lost Peter and, as I said, many other great men and women. But as he said, we will rebuild. We've got a lot of hard work to do. And at the moment, we just want to say thank you to everyone who has backed us. We won't let down all of those people who have supported us. We will rebuild. But we don't underestimate the enormity of the task.
I'll tell you what's the most extraordinary thing of all for me. In January in the polls, you were 51 to 49 ahead. I mean, they say a week's a long time in politics. Yep. That's an extraordinary turnaround, isn't it?
It is.
That's got to really hurt you.
It's been a big shock. I mean, we never anticipated that we would be ahead as we were. As you remember, back in 2022, the Prime Minister was speaking about a second term and deriding us as being out of the game. But very, very quickly, through The Voice, through the cost of living crisis, we rebuilt and we moved ahead in the standing, frankly, of all Australians. And the sudden turnaround has been dramatic. I mean, Andrew, I'm not going to blame anything or start to work out what went wrong tonight, but that is one of the big challenges. What happened in the last 3 months?
Joel?
Yeah, Karen, that was certainly a gracious speech. He said all the things that he needed to say in these circumstances, including, of course, taking responsibility for the loss. That's very important. I said on this panel 3 years ago, I thought Josh Frydenberg was a great loss to our parliamentary democracy, and I think Dutton's a loss. And let's be frank about it. The Liberal Party, we want to. I like a strong two-party system.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. And
Agreed.
the independents are chipping away at that, and to maintain a strong two-party system, we need good people on both sides of the political divide. And Dutton's a great loss, I think, for the Liberal Party into the country. He's been there 24 years. He's served in some of the highest offices in the land. And all of that experience now just disappears.
Extraordinary achievement. I remember speaking to him very early on after he beat Cheryl Kernot in the early 2000s, and it was such a wafer-thin, as Barnaby's rightly pointed out, a wafer-thin margin. For all that period, he held it. This time, the weight, I guess, of the job and everything else, it just toppled him.
Yeah, and the Labor Party will all be celebrating long into the night tonight, but we should think about the strength of the other side. There are a number of people on that side who have lost their seats tonight who were quality people. Keith Wallahan in Menzies, for example.
Yeah, he was good.
One of the up-and-coming stars, former Special Forces soldier. He's gone too, as I understand it, so it's carnage.
But just to jump in there, just on that point, because I think you make a really powerful point, Joel, that we need a strong Labor Party and the Labor Party needs a strong Liberal Party.
Yeah.
I think everyone, and there'll be jubilation over with Labor rightly tonight with the result, but everyone should have a look at when you demonise the character of someone. The man we saw spoke then is a man that you know, and you will have had very difficult calls that he's made to you. We've all dealt with Peter Dutton. It is a shame that to beat a human being in the game in Australia, we've now got into this system where we tear them apart, their character apart. Because he's a fundamentally decent human being, and that he was demonised to the point that he was a caricature, I think says a lot about where politics is today compared to where it was 20 years ago, even 15 years ago. And I think that's a real shame.
Well, I think it's true to say that we've got a high level of partisanship in our system at the moment.
I don't mind squaring off on policy, but when you square off on human beings that we think we all agree, we all know them, we all say that they're good, decent people, I think that's pretty lousy.
I think there's a bit of fault to go around.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's just Labor.
It's not the first. Julia Gillard copped a pretty hard time from certain
Well,
Liberal
Tony
Party
Abbott
people.
did too, mate. It goes
I'm just saying
around.
it's not a new thing, but it
But I
was a
think
very
we should
dignified
reflect
speech.
on that.
Very dignified
I think we
speech.
should reflect on that.
So just reflect on that.
Oh, absolutely
speech for us.
dignified speech. You know, he did exactly the right thing by acknowledging the victory, acknowledging Ailey's victory locally. I actually had one term in the state parliament in Queensland in Peter's area. He was always a very hard-working local member, and that is a seat, in my view, that on paper should be a marginal Labor seat. If you look at the demographics of it, and he's held it for 20 odd years. You've got to respect that.
No, it's an incredible
And he
achievement.
wasn't blaming, bad workman blames his tools. It wasn't like 2016 where old mate blamed everybody. Wasn't like that. Wasn't like that. He took the loss.
I think what's interesting too, and Chris has spoken about this, independents, other parties, etc. So Labor's had this massive win against the Liberals, but they could lose Richmond to the Greens as it stands, Wills to the Greens, Bean to a Teal. So they have the same issues.
But they've won Griffith back.
Yeah, that's
possibly
true.
Brisbane back.
That's true, but you've still got this third force you've got to counter.
Yeah, I think Andrew's right. I think there's a much deeper thing going on here. It's not just about the personality of Peter Dutton. It is about the structure of the coalition and what they have got on offer. And what they have got on offer has been soundly rejected by the Australian people. And if you look at the electoral map, it has shifted quite significantly to the left in Australia, which might... it's different to what we're seeing in other parts of the world, because if you add up then all the votes of the Greens and the Labor Party and the Teals, who essentially lean to the left, then you've got a very significant vote of people on that side of politics. So that makes it even harder for the coalition to work out where it is going from here. I had a friend of mine who's been in the party forever say to me the other day, I don't know whether I'm a Liberal Conservative or a Conservative Liberal. Now, that's a really interesting question, right? So how do you deal with that? So I think that we are seeing a structural realignment of Australian politics. What's necessary now is for the people who are left in the Liberal and National parties to go away and have a long, hard think about where they go from here, find themselves a leader who can articulate that and spend 3 years working on a set of policies that might actually be passable to the Australian people at the next election.
Get them out a bit earlier.
Yeah,
We're standing by to go live to the Prime Minister at his event in the inner west of Sydney. We've got our colleagues Laura Jays and Chris Kenny standing by. What's it like in the room?
The victor tonight, and victor in a very good way here. Just something quickly to say about Peter Dutton. He is a thoroughly
No, we've got a problem with that mic. Sorry, Laura and Chris. We'll get that microphone fixed. One of the things I wanted to ask Murray about, and Joel, you could both reflect on this, given you were both there for a chunk of that period. I remember, and Chris and Andrew, vividly that the leadership turmoil of the Rudd-Gillard period. And I just thought, the reason I'm thinking about it right now is because that turmoil was so real for Labor, it really rusted everyone on behind Albanese in this term. I just don't think it's that small a thing. I think it's a significant thing as he's won re-election tonight.
Joel might... I'm not quite as old as Joel. He might look as old, so I'll defer to Joel, having been there at the time.
Obviously the Labor Party had to determine that that could never happen again. And we even had a rule change to try to lock that in, although there's a bit of mythology around the rule change, as we all know. But, yeah, we learned from that experience, absolutely. And I have to say that Anthony Albanese, over the last 3 years, has governed with more authority within the party than any other leader I've served under, and I've served under a few. So that goes to 2 points. One, the caucus has learned from the mistakes of the past, but Albo knows he understands the power structures of the party. He knows how to exercise them, and he's there as long as he wants to be.
Well, that's the next point. He is Prime Minister and leader of the Labor Party for as long as he wants after that win tonight.
Absolutely. He's got more authority than he's ever had before. I mean, he's a Labor hero with a result like this, given the history and the difficulty of winning re-election as a Labor Prime Minister. I think the thing I'd add to what Joel says, there's no doubt that, cursed by the experience of Rudd Gillard, this caucus has been very tight. But I do think that we've done the work in thinking about who we are, what we stand for, what kind of party we want to be and who we're catering to. And that's why under Albo we've resisted the temptation to, take extreme paths on certain issues that some people would like us to see. And again, I think this is one of the challenges that Liberals face now, is the constant temptation to fight culture wars, which might appeal to certain people or the Liberal Party base, but it doesn't appeal to the majority of people when what they want you doing is focusing on cost of living.
He was the only guy in the room making calls for Kevin Rudd. Everyone else was outside the room making calls against Kevin Rudd to roll him. And he showed that...
Not everyone.
Can I just jump in?
Well, just about everyone.
Not everyone, not me.
OK, fair enough.
You guys fought a culture war. The Voice was a culture war, and you lost it resoundingly. I think that's a bar that Labor often throws over there about culture wars. I'd argue we didn't do enough of a culture war in this.
Be my guest. Be my guest. If you want to have more culture wars, be my guest.
Because you saw how the Trump thing went down.
No, it's not Trump. It's not Trump. It's something like just a simple statement of rights for women. That should not be controversial. I'm not saying getting into the trans debate, but just reasserting the rights of biological women. I don't think that's controversial.
Does that get votes, though?
It's just not what mainstream Australians
Australia's different to America.
I think again, gentlemen, if you would forgive me, but I'm sick of being mansplained about what biological women feel about biological female rights. We do care about it. It crosses a divide. And I have been stopped by women wearing Yes T-shirts at the airport saying, keep going, my mob won't talk about women's rights. So I do think I don't think it's a leading cause and big issue for the campaign, but I don't think you forget to talk about it. We refused to engage on that. And if you're on the Conservative side of politics, I think that's a mistake. But you guys went to a referendum on a culture war issue.
And we got smashed.
And got smashed.
And again, I think we learned from that lesson. I think we learned from that lesson. And, over the course, even just during this campaign, we had the Liberals fighting issues that I would categorise as culture wars, working from home.
What?
Working from home.
I don't think that's a culture issue.
That's not a culture issue.
It was trying to send a message to people who can't work from home that you're on their side. The anti-public sector rhetoric that's a culture war.
Oh, I don't think that is. I think that's budget prudence. But anyway,
school curriculum, the backflipping there. Sarah was talking about changing the school curriculum to eliminate some of the woke stuff. Then Peter said, "No, we're not going to do that."
No, that's not correct.
People are not People were the biggest issue in this campaign was always going to be cost of living. It's what we focused on. In a variety of ways.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
And let me just say,
chasing all these other issues down rabbit holes.
As the Shadow Education Minister, we prosecuted the issues that matter to parents and teachers and principals. And in fact, the decision that we made was to bring forward a review of the curriculum. It's something that teachers and principals care deeply about.
Did it frustrate you that you weren't allowed to get that policy out there? From my understanding, this policy was dropped on Friday.
Oh, look, I'm not going to comment on that other than to say...
Here's Penny Wong, sorry, we'll talk about that later. Here's Penny Wong. Introduce him.
Thank you, friends. Thank you all. Thank you for believing in Labor. Thank you for believing in the power of this great nation. The power in our 26 million people from more than 300 ancestries. and from the oldest continuing civilisation on the planet. And I acknowledge the traditional owners. Friends, we love this country. We love this country. And representing it to the world is the honour of my life. Because of who we are and what we strive to be. A nation that stands on its own 2 feet, that invests in the aspirations of all of its people, a nation of courage and of kindness. I saw this purpose and these principles in our campaign across the country. Our hard-working candidates, the thousands of Labor volunteers in every state and territory, in every community, working for a better future. Friends, 3 years ago, the Australian people made a collective decision to turn the page and write a new future for ourselves. Tonight, together, we start the new chapter. And we will write this next chapter so all Australians are part of our nation's story. No matter who we are or where we come from, no matter age or gender, no matter the lottery of birth, Australia's opportunity is for us all. And friends, that Australian story is embodied by our Australian Prime Minister, a man who shows what real strength is, a man of courage, a man of compassion, a leader with the conviction of who we are and what we can be, a leader with a conviction that builds Australia's future. Friends, some might want to mimic the worst of other countries. Albo always backs what's best about our country. Please welcome my dear friend, our Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese.
My fellow Australians, serving as your Prime Minister is the greatest honour of my life. And it is with a deep sense of humility and a profound sense of responsibility that the first thing that I do tonight is to say thank you to the people of Australia for the chance to continue to serve the best nation on earth. And I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet. And I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging today and every day. Today, the Australian people have voted for Australian values. For fairness, aspiration and opportunity for all. For the strength to show courage in adversity and kindness to those in need. And